This scan was routine, just another pass in a long series of deep space surveys. We were mapping Sector 7G, a quiet, unremarkable quadrant known mostly for its cosmic background radiation and a few dormant gas giants. The objective was simple: catalog any new gravitational anomalies or unregistered energy signatures. It was methodical work, tedious even. The kind of work where you measure progress in petabytes of data, most of which is just the quiet hum of the universe. We had run thousands of these scans before. They were the background noise of our mission, the steady, predictable rhythm of deep space cartography. Nothing in the mission parameters, nothing in the preceding 3 years of data suggested this scan would be any different from the last, until the signal appeared. It didn't fade in. It didn't build from a whisper of static. It simply was. One moment, the monitors showed the familiar, gentle chaos of background radiation. The next, a single, coherent waveform had resolved itself from the noise. It was instantaneous. A clean, sharp line drawn across the void. The initial alert was a soft, unobtrusive chime, the kind the system uses for low-priority events. But on the main spectral display, the signal was anything but low priority. It was a stark, undeniable presence where there should have been nothing. Perfect. The word is not used lightly in our field. It's a theoretical concept, a mathematical ideal. It doesn't exist in nature. But this signal was the dictionary definition of the word. A pure, unadulterated sine wave holding its form with an impossible stillness. It was beautiful. In a sterile, inorganic way, like a line drawn by a compass, not a signal propagated through the messy, unpredictable fabric of space-time. No noise. Every signal, no matter its origin, carries the scars of its journey. It picks up interference from stellar winds, gravitational lensing, quantum foam. The universe is a noisy place. A signal's noise floor tells the story of where it's been. But this signal had no story to tell. The noise filters registered absolute zero. Not low noise, not near zero. Absolute. It was as if the signal existed outside the physical laws that govern interference and decay. It was pristine, untouched, no fluctuation. Its amplitude was locked, not just stable, but fundamentally unchanging. Even the most powerful focused transmissions experience subtle power fluctuations as their source moves or their energy dissipates over vast distances. This signal defied that. Its strength was a constant, measured down to the 10th decimal place, second after second, minute after minute. It was a monolith of energy, unwavering and absolute. That's not normal. The first flicker of unease began to set in. This wasn't just an anomaly. It was an impossibility. The system's own logic controllers began flagging the input as paradoxical. The data was too clean, too consistent. It violated the fundamental assumptions programmed into our analytical models. The initial reaction was to assume equipment malfunction, a sensor failure, a calibration error. It was the only logical explanation. Real signals drift. They breathe. They are affected by the medium through which they travel. Their frequency shifts. Their amplitude wavers. Their phase rotates. This is the signature of reality. It is the expected, predictable imperfection that proves a signal is genuine. We pulled up archived signals from known pulsars and quasars for comparison. They were all beautifully chaotic, noisy, and alive with fluctuation. They were real. This one didn't. It was static, locked in place as if it were a part of the user interface itself, a graphical element burned into the screen. But it wasn't. It was a live feed. A signal from the depths of Sector 7G that behaved like no signal ever recorded. Same depth. We ran triangulation checks from 3 separate sensor arrays. The result was a single, fixed point in space. No movement. Not even the microscopic wobble expected from a source in orbit or rotating on an axis. It was as if the source was pinned to the fabric of space-time itself, completely stationary relative to our position, which was, of course, impossible. Same strength. The energy reading was just as confounding. It didn't follow the inverse square law. Whether we focused the array or broadened the aperture, the received signal strength remained identical. It was as if the signal wasn't propagating from a source, but was instead being generated at our sensor, yet all diagnostics confirmed it was external. Same shape. The waveform itself was a perfect sine wave. No harmonic distortion, no modulation, no data encoded within it. It was pure carrier wave, a single perfect tone broadcast across interstellar space. We analyzed its phase, its polarity, its structure. Every metric was flawless, and every metric was unchanging. Again and again. We rescanned. We shifted our observation vector by 5 degrees. Then 10. We initiated a full system reboot and recalibrated the primary sensor array from scratch. Each time, the result was the same. The moment the scan passed over that specific coordinate in space, the signal reappeared. Instantaneous, perfect, unchanging, perfectly repeatable. This was no longer a potential malfunction. A malfunction is random. It produces errors, not flawless, repeatable results. This was a phenomenon, a true unknown. The unease solidified into something more concrete. A quiet, professional dread. The system itself, cross-referencing the repeated impossibility, agreed. That's when it escalated. The system elevated the event status from unidentified signal to Class 1 anomaly. This triggered a new set of protocols. All other survey operations were automatically suspended. The system's full diagnostic and analytical power was now dedicated to this one, single point in space. We checked the system. We ran every diagnostic imaginable. Hardware integrity, software validation, power fluctuations, data bus latency. We were looking for the flaw in our own equipment, the simple error that would explain everything. We wanted to find a problem. It would have been a relief. Everything was calibrated. The results came back clean. Every sensor, every processor, every line of code was performing exactly as designed. The system was perfect. The conclusion was unavoidable. The error was not in the receiver. The error was in the signal itself. It was real. Nothing was interfering. We scanned for any known phenomena that could be spoofing our sensors. Gravitational lensing, plasma clouds, magnetar bursts. The space between us and the signal's origin was empty, clean. There was nothing that could be shaping it, cleaning it, or holding it so perfectly steady. Perfect data is rare. In theory, it's the goal of every experiment. In practice, it's a red flag. It suggests a closed system, an artificial environment. It suggests the absence of the random, chaotic variables that define the natural universe. Perfect data is suspicious. It implies intent. It implies design. Randomness is natural. Order, on this scale of perfection, is not. What could create such a signal? A natural phenomenon that violates known physics. Or something else. Something artificial. And if it was artificial, what was its purpose? A beacon, a warning, or a lure? That's when we hesitated. For the first time, we stopped reacting and started thinking. The drive to analyze was replaced by a primal sense of caution. We were looking at something that shouldn't exist, and we had no framework to understand it. The protocols were clear for unidentified signals. They were not clear for impossible ones. And pushed once more. We made a decision. One final test. We would bypass the standard protocols and route all available power to the primary scanner, focusing a high-energy, deep-penetration pulse directly at the signal's source. The idea was to force a reaction, to see if we could disrupt its perfection. Nothing changed. Our most powerful, focused energy burst had no effect. It was like throwing a rock at a ghost. The signal didn't absorb the energy. It didn't reflect it. It didn't fluctuate in the slightest. It simply ignored it. It continued its perfect, unwavering transmission as if we weren't even there. That's when we got nervous. The professional dread curdled into genuine fear. This wasn't just an unknown phenomenon. It was a phenomenon that was impervious to our interaction. It was utterly, completely other. We were not observing it. The data suggested it was simply allowing itself to be observed. The power dynamic in that moment felt terrifyingly clear. Because nature isn't perfect. Nature is messy, chaotic, and beautifully flawed. It is defined by entropy, decay, and random chance. This signal possessed none of those qualities. It was the antithesis of nature. Whatever its source, it was not born of the universe we knew. The system agreed. Its final analysis, based on the signal's unnatural perfection and its non-interaction with our energy pulse, was a recommendation of disengagement. The logic was cold and clear. An entity that can project a signal of this nature is operating on a level of physics far beyond our own. Continued interaction was an unquantifiable risk, so we stopped the scan. The command was given, the arrays were powered down, the active observation ceased. It felt like closing a door you should never have opened. A profound sense of relief mixed with an even more profound sense of dread. And froze the data. We captured a final 5-second snapshot of the signal, a perfect, unchanging line, a digital fossil of an impossible moment. It was all the evidence we would keep, sealed the record. The entire log of the event, from the initial detection to the final disengagement, was classified at the highest level and placed in a sealed data vault. Access was restricted. The file was flagged for non-replication. It was not a discovery to be shared. It was a warning to be contained, and redacted the location. The coordinates were wiped from all active star charts. Sector 7G was reclassified as a navigational hazard due to unstable gravitational fields, a lie to keep others away. No one would be sent to that region again, not by us, because some signals aren't meant to be followed. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved. We are explorers, but we are not fools. When the universe presents you with a perfect, straight line in a world of curves and chaos, it is not an invitation. It is a boundary. Perfect isn't natural. It is the hallmark of the artificial. And an artificiality that can impose its will on the physics of the universe is not something to be trifled with. It is something to be avoided, at all costs. And stopping was the right call. It may have been the most important discovery in human history. Or it could have been the last. We chose not to find out. We chose caution. We chose survival. This isn't over. The signal is still there. We know the coordinates. It waits, perfect and patient. And we know that someday, someone else, perhaps with less caution, will scan that same quiet, unremarkable quadrant of space, and they will find it.